Welcome to episode 21 of the David and Hillary Show.
Wow, 21. That's a lot. I can't believe we've done that many.
Last week, we started discussing communication.
Oh, that reminds me. Do you remember the other thing that happened last week when we were on the job?
We had so much to say that we needed to break it down into two parts. So here is part 2 of part 1 of sailing.
Part 2 of part 1.
Okay.
That's kind of confusing, don't you think?
Would you please stop interrupting me?
I know, that's so annoying, right?
It's so annoying.
People shouldn't do that.
People shouldn't do that. So here is part 2 of part 1 of sailing the 7 seas of a successful marriage. Let's do this.
Yeah, I hate interrupting. So
Yeah.
it was kind of funny for me to play that part. But we are going to talk about that in a little bit. But
Yes.
we're going to jump into show and tell to start this episode. And we're back to show and garden photos. So this is probably one of the very first plants that we showed you earlier this spring when we talked about showing garden photos. It was like this tall. It was
So tiny.
barely coming up out of the ground, and now it's just ready to explode. And if you look closely at the buds, you can tell there are, on every stem, there are so many buds. I actually counted and kind of did some estimating. I think that, man, I looked at this last year too. I think it's possible that we get somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 blooms
That's incredible.
off of one plant each season, and it is incredible. And here's what they look like. They have finally started blooming. So the kind of orangey ones there, they're pretty, and I like them. They're maybe not my favorite, but I love the fact that probably that plant has more blooms than any other one single plant in the garden.
Yeah. I really like this one. You're right. It's maybe not the most spectacular, but it's faithful.
It's faithful
and beautiful.
That's right. This is the pyramid trellis that I've shown you multiple times, but the repeat purple de oro lilies are kind of going crazy right now, and that's fun. And here's what they look like up close. They're not as spectacular up close, but it's fun to see them in mass like that and doing so well.
Yeah, they are pretty.
Yeah, we also have pond plants blooming now. So this is I just drew a blank. What is this one?
Pickerel Rush.
Pickerel Rush. Right? Yes, I knew that. But Pickerel Rush comes in white and blue. Ours are blue, and there's our waterfall in the background. Then on our patio, we have, or around the edge of our patio, we have lace cap hydrangeas. And this is one of my favorites because it's just kind of a cool... Most hydrangeas have a full bloom, whether it's a round bloom or what do they call them? Panicle bloom, which is like a longer bloom, which is what the ruby slippers is. But these are almost like a dish that has flowers hanging off mostly the edges. And then we have a close-up of this one. When you look really close, they're a completely different type of flower, these little closed up balls all over there. And I've watched them through the years, and some of those little tiny flowers open up. You can see in this picture, some of them are open and some of them aren't. Some of them will never open. But the blooms on that range from pink to purple to blue, and it's fun.
And I've really come to appreciate this one as well, because as our winters here in Tennessee fluctuate, if the hydrangea blooms on old wood, sometimes we get really disappointed not because they can't take the cold.
Right.
You can grow these in Michigan, but what happens here is the warm spring comes, they start to bud out, and then we get a freeze a lot of times. And so that's been really disappointing. But these guys, they're very faithful. They might be one of my favorites. Don't tell the other plants.
Right. No.
But I like them a lot.
Yeah, the lace caps are cool. Here's another daylily that we have, and it's kind of a simple one, but it's pretty, and it bloomed this last week, so we wanted to include it. And then out by the shed, we have dwarf butterfly bushes, and the name of this variety of butterfly bush is Pugster. Pugster comes in 2 or 3 shades of blue and purple. There's a white, and this one is cleverly called Pugster Pinker. So there's a close-up of what that looks like, and it definitely attracts a lot of bees and butterflies. So
I like them. I like the white one though because it smells like honey.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're doing great.
We also have quite a few cannas in the yard and different colors and different kinds. This orange variety is the first one that we ever owned, and we got it from a customer. We talked about how that happens a lot. So that's fun. And they've done really well in the yard and multiplied. We've moved them around different parts of the yard, given them away to family and friends. But the orange one is our first canna. And then this is the ruby slippers I mentioned a minute ago. And I showed you this a couple weeks ago and talked about how this is an example of a panicle style hydrangea bloom. Last time I showed it to you, it was mostly white with just a little bit of pink. And now you can see that the pink is spreading and is starting to change color. And then we have one zinnia. We have an area where we normally put zinnia seeds every spring. And again, we've been so busy. It doesn't even take, it probably takes an hour to prepare, put the seeds down, cover them up, make sure we have everything just the way we like it.
I think we get partial credit for buying the seeds. We have them.
Yeah, we have them.
We have them.
They're sitting on the shelf.
We're going to plant them.
We are. Well, they'll still come up. In fact, sometimes we plant them so early that they start looking pretty rough while it still seems like it should be a good season for them. So I think we'll still get some. But this is a volunteer that self-seeded from last year.
He's like, where are my friends?
I respect.
There were so many of us last year.
I respect that.
He
was an overachiever.
Survivor.
This is a coneflower plant that's like a hybrid, and we bought it a couple of years ago, put it in the garden. It's another one that the rabbits wouldn't leave alone. You've heard us talk about that before, and it has never looked this good.
I almost didn't even know where it came from. I was like, what is this plant?
Surprise.
Who planted it there?
I was like, this is what I was so mad about. I kept envisioning this in the yard, and the rabbits kept eating it and making it impossible for it to come up. So this is the first year that we've got to really see that.
Well, I love it.
Me too. Here's another hybrid. I don't have the name of this one, but it's one we got from Iris City Gardens. It's a beautiful scarlet.
Very pretty.
And then this is the dwarf blue mouse ears hydrangea near our backyard. We've highlighted this area before. You can see the painted fern and a little bit of the leaf from the bleeding heart. But now the mouse ears is blooming, and I love these blooms.
It's also one of my favorites.
Well, here's a close-up of the blooms. It's fairly short-lived, but it's a fun little plant to walk past on our way in and out of the house.
Yeah. Yep. I like the placement. He's grown so much.
Yeah, and because it's a dwarf, it just doesn't get very tall, but it keeps growing this way. Mm-hmm. And we've split it and, again, given some away and moved it around different places around the garden. This is another hybrid daylily that I like the long, slender petals. There are a few that do that, but that's the only one that we have in our garden quite like that. This one's called Bony Maroni.
Yeah, he's fun. And I like how he really does kind of stand out. He's unique, just a unique shape.
Yep.
I like it.
We've got some white cone flowers coming in that area too, so they look good together.
They do. I like them.
This is actually the daylily that's behind the first one that I showed you that is such a profuse bloomer. So you saw hints of red behind there. This is actually called the Tang daylily. Some of these I remember and some of them I don't, but the Tang is another one that has done pretty well, and we've divided it and moved it all around. This is another canna. I think last year was our first year for this. No, last year was the second year. We bought one plant and put it in the ground, and it did really well. And over the last couple of years, it's spread to be several plants. And I like that color just because we don't have any other cannas that color.
This one's a little shorter too. It's just a different variety, and I really like cannas a lot, and it's fun to see the different colors, different foliage, different sizes. They're fun.
It is. I enjoy that. And there's a close-up. That's a good-looking plant. Here is another of the hybrid daylilies we got from Iris City Gardens, and we've shown you this one before, but I was so excited I showed you when the very first one bloomed, and now all his friends came out to play, so it's fun to see a grouping.
Yeah.
Was it last year? I think it was last year that you got real excited. We were at one of the nurseries, and you decided you had to have gladiolas in the yard.
Yeah, we had never grown them. Maybe we tried one time when we were first married, but we had all those bulbs.
Right.
But I have a memory of my grandma having gladiolas by the garage.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was about them that I thought I couldn't grow them. But I'd never tried.
Well, they say in Tennessee you have to pull them.
Right.
Because they don't like the severe cold.
But when one of our kids bought their house, it came with gladiola bulbs, and they just grew. And so I thought, let's give it a try. And so last year I had so much fun. I planted them a little bit later in the season. They still came up. They were so cute. And this year, some of them I did not pull any of them, and they are coming up again.
Yeah.
Even bigger, even taller. And so, yeah.
Yeah, one of them's probably about 7 feet now.
I know. It's
the white one.
amazing.
Well, there it is. The white one.
Yeah. And you notice the pink on the bottom? Did you see that coming out? They started pretty. All white, but then I noticed the bottom of it's turning pink. So, but yeah, this is taller than me. I had to go out and stake it because I was afraid it was going to fall over.
Well, and I took that picture, and a lot of the flowers are facing away from us toward the shed, which is funny. But I went on the other side to take a picture, and almost every flower had one of these insects in it. I don't know what kind of insect that is, but they all seem to love the gladiolas.
It's their fancy house.
Yeah, it's a fancy house. Well, here's a bonus pick. This is not blooming right now, but I went back through all our notes, and I realized that I forgot to include this when it did bloom.
Oh, wow.
This is one of the new irises that we bought this year, and I just love it. It's kind of, the photo is pretty accurate, but it's kind of buttercream standards and coppery orangey falls. It's really striking in person. This is one where the photo truly doesn't do it full justice, but you can tell it's pretty, and it's called Fall Fiesta.
Nice.
So I'm hoping that those will do well in the garden. I look forward to seeing a bunch more of those in the future. And then that last picture is from above. I just thought that was a cool shot.
So beautiful, so artistic.
Looks like something you'd see on the front of a math book. There's a geometry problem in there. That's somewhere. Right. Oh, bless you.
Must be the pollen.
She's allergic to irises.
Yeah. Aw, and look at this picture. All right, so back to our marriage pictures. This is the only one we're going to show today. But
since we're doing part 2 of part 1.
That's right, part 2 of part 1. Of course, we have the old Faithful Unity candle right here. And if you look in the picture, so this candle actually started as 2 halves.
Right.
And during the wedding ceremony, we each lit our half of the candle. And then I think at that point, did we push the candle together as part of the ceremony?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then it became one candle. Yeah. So I thought this was just the coolest idea ever. I had never seen anybody do this. I think one of my friends had told me about it, that they had done it for their wedding. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm getting one of those.
Well, it was a trend at that time.
Did other people do it?
No, it was just us.
I just knew we did it.
It was us and whoever told you about it. It was It was 2 couples.
They only sold 2 candles.
So, fun fact about our wedding, we long distance dated, pretty much the whole time that we dated for a year and a half. And I did most of the wedding prep because she was 4.5 hours away at college.
No internet, people.
No internet.
Think about it.
All the phone calls are long distance. They're not included in your plan. Yep. They're expensive. And we wrote letters.
We wrote a lot of letters.
Did talk some on the phone. And she was like, well, you're going to have to do most of this because I'm not there to do it.
We made our decisions together.
You couldn't order things on the internet. There was no Amazon. I mean, it was, yeah.
I don't even know how we did this.
That just cracks me up that you're surprised that the Unity candle was a trend. They were all over the place in 1992.
I only saw this one.
Well, and me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to recap a little bit from last episode.
Yeah.
So we began this series that we're going to do called Sailing the 7 Seas of a Successful Marriage. And last week we started talking about communication, which we felt like was number one.
Yes.
The number one C. David talked about his parents and the fact that they had kind of set the example. If you want me to know something, you actually have to tell me.
Right.
Just incredible idea. What an incredible, if all society could just learn that one little rule.
Right.
So that would be great. We talked about the question why, and that is a tool kind of like a shovel that'll just kind of help you like dig down to help you discover what you're actually feeling, what you're actually thinking, why something is making you angry, and that it's really important. It'll help you with each other to use that question to get to the actual thing that you're feeling or thinking.
Yes. It's not just 2-year-olds that ask the question why.
We should all be asking.
We also talked about how it's really important to make sure that you are actually communicating and not just talking in the same room.
I love that phrase.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you make sure that you're actually communicating? We came up with 6 different points to help have good communication skills. And the first one is say what you mean and mean what you say. Now, be kind while you're doing that. That doesn't mean that you get to just not have a filter and say mean things, but no talking in code. Be specific. And if you need to, reduce things to simplest forms in order to make sure that you're really on the same page.
That's good. And then number 2 was actually listen. Delete the distractions. Don't be on your phone. Turn off the TV, the tablets, anything electronic. You might need to go to another room, another part of the house to get away from other people. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we would leave the house. We would get in the car and then delete all those distractions and really separate.
Yep.
Depending on the level of the importance. And then when your spouse or your mate is talking, really be listening to make sure that you understand. And if you need to, be specific with your questions. Ask clarifying questions, but be respectful. And then also don't be thinking about your next comment while the other person is talking.
Right.
That means you're not really listening. So we're listening to understand, not to figure out like we're on the debate team, right? We're not trying to get our next great point in.
Exactly.
That will win the discussion.
Right.
We also discussed that divorce, we said out loud on purpose, would never be an option.
Right.
We didn't really say out loud murder would not be an option. I think that was understood.
Well, we did on the last episode. Yeah. Divorce is not an option, and neither is murder. Well, because you said, and we did say this, divorce is not an option. This marriage goes until somebody dies.
That's right.
And then
from natural causes.
Yeah, and murder's not an option either.
Because of all the crime shows on TV, the first time where's the husband?
It's always the spouse.
It's always the spouse. Where's the wife? Where was she at 10 o'clock? I'm like, that's horrible.
Right.
All right.
Well, that kind of catches us up.
Yep.
For part 1 of part 1. And so this is part 2 of the first C, communication. And our next point, which is actually point number 3, is no interrupting. Yeah. No interrupting. That's where our dumb little skit came from at the beginning, where I got to act like an idiot. But so no interrupting. And you might ask, well, why not? I mean, everybody interrupts, right? Okay. So check this out. I came up with 3 really good reasons. We did. Interrupting is the height of narcissism. You believe that whatever you have to say is so much more important than what the other person has to say that they don't even deserve a chance to say it.
All right. Number 2, interrupting is the height of selfishness. You want to win the discussion so badly, you won't give the other person what is rightly theirs, the opportunity to express their views and opinions.
Yes. And number 3 on why not, interrupting is the height of cowardice. Why? Because you're so afraid the other person may have a comment or opinion that beats yours that you shout them down so they don't even get a turn in the fair exchange of ideas. So don't interrupt. Why not? Because it makes you a narcissist, it makes you selfish, and it makes you a coward.
Yeah, that's.
And if it sounds like we're just calling you names, I mean, one of the things you may hear us say quite a bit on this podcast, and especially in the marriage stuff, is look, marriage is for adults, so act like an adult. Okay. A lot of people, us included at many different times, acted kind of like selfish children. It's unfortunately kind of a default setting for the human race. And we'll just say that. But when you recognize it and you recognize that what you're doing is not good, it's not healthy, and it's not mature, then remind yourself, hey, I'm in a marriage. I should act like an adult.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So again, when we first were dating, I was in school. I had, I had gone to public school. Then I was at a Christian school after that, university. But no matter what school setting you're in, interrupting is just par for the course. And
seems to be.
And it never really, nobody, I just don't feel like anybody in any of those school settings ever made a big deal about it. Not any of the teachers, certainly none of my friends. This is something that's actually really important to you specifically. You would say it's a pet peeve of yours.
Right. And
so I think I naturally just did this when we were dating, and you would ask me not to. And I didn't even realize I was doing it at all. And so again, once we talked about it and I realized, okay, he would really rather I not do this. Culturally, I've just pretty much been doing this my whole life, but sure, we can try this. And I loved it because again, when you let the other person deliver their complete thought, it helps you understand. And then guess what?
Right.
You get to deliver your complete thought.
Yes.
And it's really rude to do otherwise. And once you make that commitment that we don't interrupt, it just deepens. It deepens your communication with each other. And I loved it. So we tried really hard to do this as a family, and we tried really hard to do this with each other. We're not perfect at it, but that's how we try. We try to do it without interrupting.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Well, so another part here in the interrupting, and it kind of goes along with something that we did in the recap from a previous point, but when you promise not to interrupt, if you listen well, not to come up with your next argument, but actually listen to what the other person is saying, by the end of their statement or their explanation or their opinion or whatever, they may actually be making a completely different point than you thought they were going to make. And the only way that you get to hear what's actually on their heart or in their mind is if you're quiet and let them fully say it.
Yeah, that's good. It's just respectful. It's kind. You have to be courageous enough to listen to, especially to opposing views. Our culture does not like to do that. They think that if you're even listening to an opposing view, you're like validating it. You're not. You're listening. You're objectively trying to consider whether the other person may have a point worth considering.
Yeah.
So I will say I did an experiment one time because I realized how in our culture how acceptable it is to interrupt. And so I sometimes, when I'm out, especially like in public, the minute I get interrupted, I just stop talking. And I don't start that thought back up again unless someone asks me to. And do you know, most of the time they don't.
Right.
People interrupt. They don't care what you're saying. They run right over your words. And I thought, so it's interesting. Try it sometime. When you get interrupted, just stop talking. Let the other person talk, and just see if anybody ever asks you to circle back. They probably won't.
It's crazy.
It is. But it's
crazy.
It's a fun little experiment.
It kind of goes back to the narcissistic part. But anyway.
Yeah.
So not interrupting can be difficult, especially if you realize that you're someone who has been used to interrupting, and maybe you're in a family or a group of people that also do it. But let's be honest, not interrupting is the mature approach. And like we mentioned a couple minutes ago, marriage is for adults. So let's aim high.
Yeah. The no interrupting challenge has been thrown down.
That's right. You can do it.
Try
I believe in
it.
you.
All right, number 4. We're going to call this no monologuing. And that's when you're in a conversation and probably, trying to communicate with each other, and you just go on and on and on and on and on. Monologuing is a passive-aggressive way to monopolize the conversation. Especially if you know that the other person is not going to interrupt.
Right.
Don't do that. And I think we've both been guilty of this at some points. You just want so badly to make your point.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not going to stop talking until everybody agrees. But like we said before, say what you have to say, but keep it short and to the point, because it's a form of selfishness, again, to monopolize.
Right. And I think sometimes people do it passive aggressively, and sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing it. Mm-hmm. Some personalities just talk a lot, and some people feel like they have to explain something 3 or 4 or 6 different ways in order to get their point across. And I've been guilty of that at times, and not really meant to do it. But yeah, don't interrupt, but also don't take advantage of that by monologuing.
Well, and even if you have more than one point that you want to make, if you're keeping things short, you're moving back and forth, it's better because it just keeps the conversation moving. It gives more opportunities for clarification.
Yep.
Like you said, if the other person doesn't want to interrupt, but you said something quite a while ago that they thought, well, that's actually not correct. Then you have to kind of keep rehashing and going back. It keeps the listener from getting frustrated if you keep things shorter. And it's easier to stay on point. You want to finish the conversation and move on. And if one person just won't stop, hammering that point, it just makes it harder.
Yeah.
So no monologuing.
That's right. Well, so that's, we did 2 last time and 2 this time. So hang on, because we're going to keep going and we're going to actually finish communication.
Woohoo.
We have 2 more points. Point number 5 is repeat key phrases back to the other person in order to make sure that you heard correctly and that you truly understand. This is a great skill in listening that I learned a long time ago, and I think I was a little embarrassed that I was so old when I first heard it that I didn't know it was a good thing to try to work in and practice. But that was a while ago too, so I've been working on that. But you can say things like, "Okay, so what I heard you say was," or "Okay, so what I think you're saying is," and you don't try to twist it and turn it into what you want them to say or what you hope they mean, but you try to objectively repeat back to them what they actually said. The purpose of this is not, again, to win the conversation, but just to understand. So Hillary tells me something, and then I say, okay. And it's not, you're not even trying to be coy. You can be really super transparent, and you say, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. I think what I heard you say, and then try to say it back, maybe just slightly differently in your own words. just to see if you understand it.
Super helpful.
They say if you can't explain a concept, I've heard this in school as well. If you can't explain a concept, you don't understand it. Well, I read that chapter and I think I know it well enough to get a good grade. Well, can you explain it? If you can't explain it, you probably don't truly understand it. Mm-hmm. And if you can't say back to your partner what they just told you, you probably didn't really hear it. And that doesn't have to be, like a death knell on the conversation or on your relationship, but you could just go, well, she says it, I say it back, and she says, no, that's not what I'm trying. Okay, well, I'm trying to understand. Can you tell me again?
Say it again, and that maybe means that I need to say it in a different way.
Yeah.
So because the first one didn't work. So.
I think one of the mistakes in relationships is people are always trying to, like, if we're having a conflict, whose fault is it? I mean, maybe sometimes that's important, but if she's telling me something and I say it back and she's like, no, that doesn't have to be anybody's fault. Did she not say it well? Well, I'm not going to jump on that and blame her. Well, you must not explain it very well, or I would have understood it. And I mean, okay, you think that's going to help? That's going to get you closer to understanding each other.
Yeah.
And then if she says, well, you're clearly not listening, I'm trying. I'm trying to tell it back to you.
We're not trying to place blame.
Let's try
We're
try
trying
again.
to understand.
I want to understand. Mm-hmm. Let's try it again, and we'll keep at it until we do get it, until we both understand, until we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. That's good. And then number 6 is avoid sarcasm and humor.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a hard one.
Yeah, especially for me.
Well, me too. We both like to be funny.
Right.
We both like to be sarcastic at times. And if we're in a good place, we can be sarcastic and funny all day long.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll say things you're like, "Oh, I didn't know if you'd think that was funny." I'm like, "Oh, that was really funny." When we're not in a good place together,
right,
nothing is funny.
No.
There's no humor is needed. So especially if the conversation is not going well for whatever reason, I think early on I thought, okay, well, I'll say it in a funny way, and then that will lighten the mood. It does not lighten the mood.
No.
Cute remarks,
nope.
Sarcastic remarks, funny. When we've just learned, the more frustrated we are, the less humor that we need to use.
Exactly.
And it's just so much better. The best way is to work through that frustration. To work through that frustration is to be respectful.
Yes.
In fact, I think we have learned to get extra respectful. When we know the other one's frustrated or we're not understanding each other, we just immediately almost go to how would you treat somebody at the grocery store? Like all those kind, polite words that you would, sometimes even a yes, ma'am, or a no, sir. Like we just try so hard to get down to that place where we're talking with the most respect that we can, so that nothing gets misunderstood, and that we're trying to get on the same page with clear speaking, good listening, no humor, no sarcasm. So, and then, I mean, and that was hard because we really thought we were helping.
Well, sometimes humor is a release.
Yeah.
Like, wow, there's so much tension in the room. I would really like to, you said that. We really like to just lighten the mood, and we
right.
But we just learned that when there's tension, humor usually doesn't lighten the mood. It's like if you say something sarcastic and I'm already irritated, I'm probably going to take that in the worst way possible.
Right.
Nobody has a great sense of humor when they're already irritated. I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. Mm-mm. No, and kind of along with that, maybe in a little different way, Proverbs 15:1. I learned this. I think the Lord gave this to me a long time ago, but we both have used it. And this is the concept that a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.
Yeah.
And, people in relationships take turns being angry. And when you realize that person is already stirred up, you have the ability to push those buttons and to stir up their anger even more, because you know each other well. You
Right.
know the things that are going to make them mad. But I've just always found that if we use this principle and use a gentle answer to turn away the anger, then we can kind of let things settle down and then come back.
Yeah.
When we're not so stirred up. So that I think it's a good good reminder.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. Well, there you have the first C in the 7 C's of a successful marriage.
Woohoo, we did it.
Communication.
C for candle. Oh,
Wow.
and then we almost burned the set down.
That is almost C for
Catastrophe.
Call 911. The house is on fire.
This podcast is so hot.
Be a little less hot. All right. Well, there's our 6 points for communication. I hope that was helpful. We're going to keep going with this. And next week, we will do the second C in a successful marriage, which is cooperation. Yes. And we'll have a lot to say about that. I hope that you'll join us. We know that your time is important and valuable, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. We hope that you'll come back and do that again on our next episode. For now, we're David and Hillary. This is when you say we'll see you.
Oh, okay. I'm like, and that's our preview. No. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.